Last year, Brazilian comic book artist Ed Benes self-published his first title with Nina and Ariel #1, which actually started as a Kickstarter campaign. And anyone following the world of comic books right now knows that this is becoming an increasingly popular choice for even established artists who have worked for Marvel, DC, Image to put out their own books, get a little funding ahead of time, and then release the books. Some of them do better than others. There's been plenty of titles that have been fully funded, and then people who back it end up waiting a year, 2 years, in some cases up to 6 years and counting without receiving their books. But the Ed Benes title, Nina and Ariel, fortunately was one of those books that, even though it took a couple months for it to eventually be put together and shipped out, was eventually released to the fans who backed it. Now, I didn't know about this when it was going on. I probably would have backed it at the time and gotten a couple of the extra incentives and covers and everything. But I found out about it a little earlier this year and finally secured my own copy on eBay. Now, this was a fairly rare comic to start with. Only about 1,100 people backed it on Kickstarter, and I believe the main cover was limited to 1,000 copies with a couple of other different covers. The one I got was actually a black and white edition, which the Kickstarter page says was limited to 200 copies total. So it's kind of neat. It's actually it was kind of freaking me out actually reading this comic book, knowing how rare it was, and not trying to bring down the grade. I'm not as near mint obsessive as some comic book readers and collectors are, and I've never bought like a CGC slabbed comic. And that personally is always reminding me of, if you've ever seen the Raggedy Ann and Andy Christmas cartoon from years back, the Big Bad Wolf had this plan of putting all the Christmas toys in plastic. He would just seal them in plastic so that no one could play with them. And I've always felt that, I get the collectible aspect for comics, but I always feel also like, it's like, well, who can read them? If you slab it, who can read it? But to be fair, there's digital copies of comic books now, so you can get like the hard copy as a collectible item and then save that in a slab and then read the PDF or CBR file online. So I think that maybe is a healthy compromise. But I got a hard copy of Nina and Ariel, and today I'm going to talk a bit about the plot, actually what's going on in this comic, what might be happening with the upcoming possibly issue 2, and I'm going to compare it to some of the other comic book Kickstarter campaigns in terms of financial success. So first of all, this comic book, Nina and Ariel, it's 18 plus. It's adults only, but there wouldn't really need to be that much changed, I think, for it to go down from 18 plus or a clearly R-rated sort of material down to PG-13. I mean, there's a lot of cuss words in here that could very easily be changed into, the asterisk and $sign and pound symbol. You don't actually have to write those words out. It's not necessary. The violence, for one thing, isn't that radically different. It's not much more violent, if at all more violent, than a typical superhero Marvel or DC comic book. It's things that we've seen in T for teen or PG-13 type rated comic books. The big thing that probably makes this 18 plus is the characters, the main characters, the female characters, Nina and Ariel, are both pretty consistently topless at the very least for a lot of this issue. But even that, it's like there's a scene where Nina's taking a shower essentially in a waterfall, but you change it, you could just change the art or like add some extra water lines and boom, you're covered. It's not that big of a deal. So 18 plus, but not super mature, even keeping all those things in mind. The added sexual content, the added violence, not that much more violence, and of course the cursing. But all that being said, is it worth it? Is it worth what I paid for it? Did I mention that? I paid possibly the most money I've ever paid for a single issue of any comic book. I've spent around $10 to $15 on certain variant covers and like signed comics at conventions in the past, but I paid all in $25 for this limited edition black and white Nina and Ariel #1. And I think, unless something else occurs to me in my past, I bought so many comics, but I tend to stick to cover price whenever possible. Or I'm also a big fan of getting things out of quarter boxes or dollar boxes, not even spending the actual cover price. if possible. But all in, I spent $25 on this on eBay, which I think was a fairly good deal. If I could have gotten it for cheaper, I would have. But I have been monitoring sales on eBay for Nina and Ariel for a while because, like I said, I missed the Kickstarter campaign and I wanted to secure a copy. I really wanted to read it, and there was no digital copy for sale on Comixology or any other vendor. So, had to get a hard copy. Went to eBay for it. And the prices there, it just depends. I've seen them go as high as $200, and I've seen them go as low as, what I paid, I think $25. I saw one up today, the full color version, for about $30, and then another $5 for shipping. So I say if you can get this for under $20, definitely pull the trigger. Go ahead and get it at that price, because even if you don't like it, I think you'd have a fairly easy time reselling it. But if you want to get one of those CGC slab, like a 9.6 or 9.8 grade book of Nina and Ariel, like I said, I've seen those up to about $200. And if you bought that, then you have to pry open the plastic if you actually wanted to read the comic. And if you did read the comic, it's fun little post-apocalyptic sci-fi romp. Fun little post-apocalyptic, always a nice turn of phrase. But this is the type of story where the earth is falling apart for whatever reason. It's climate change, world wars, that sort of thing. And all the rich people have left to another planet called New Eden. So the scum of the earth have been left behind. And that's where we meet our heroines, just trying to survive in this post-apocalyptic, brave new world. And it's a nice little done-in-one story, although there is a cliffhanger. Nina and Ariel have to deal at various points in this issue with jilted ex-lovers who they put in the friend zone. And just typical pirates, bandits, the kind of people you'd expect to meet. And again, an apocalyptic scenario. By the end of the book, they decide they should team up and help each other. There's an interview in the back with Ed Benes. He talks about some of his influences. Maybe you could have guessed anyway. Some of the influences here are, of course, Red Sonja, the Conan character. And he also name drops Joe Madureira. He doesn't say Red Monica outright, but here's my version of an Ed Benes drawing from this book of Ariel, and you might see the resemblance here with the red hair and the bandana to that Red Monica character that Joe Madureira introduced in Battle Chasers. So like I said, there is a bit of a cliffhanger here, and Ed Benes says in the back of the book that he's been working on issue 2, but it's been about a year. I mean, who am I to judge? Some artists take this long to put out a good book, and I would say this is a good book. I recommend it. Again, if you can get it under $20, go for it. But I hope we see issue 2 sooner than later. Though all that being said, it is, again, to me, impressive that Ed Benes put out a Kickstarter and actually fulfilled everything that he promised to do on his Kickstarter for the most part. This Kickstarter, there's still comments being put up within the last couple weeks as of the posting of this video, and there's people who are still receiving some of their rewards. But it's not just the book. They're receiving rewards such as original art and sketch commissions from Ed. So it's perfectly understandable that it would take a little more time to get all those out the door and shipped to the people who want them. But again, successful here getting the book out compared to, I'm always a little hesitant to fund Kickstarters, especially comic book Kickstarters, because artists who especially only have experience making a comic, not necessarily producing, releasing, printing a comic, that's the important one, and then shipping it direct from the creator to the consumer. That's a big challenge, and a lot of them I don't think are ready for it. And you can look at plenty of successful artists who are having, seems like a bit of a struggle getting their books out the door. A big one there, Ethan Van Sciver, who, I'm a big fan of Cyberfrog going back decades now. I got the comics from the 90s, but, that's a campaign on Indiegogo, not Kickstarter, but Indiegogo, that has been in the works for more than a year now. Like, closed funding, I think, a year ago, and now people are just waiting. Some more anxiously, some with less patience than others, but waiting for their books to come out. Another one, Art T. Bear, an Image Comics artist from way back who did a book called Black and White at Image, and is doing a redo of that book, a revamp of Black and White that I'd be very interested in picking up, but there's just been too much of a wait there. Who knows? He actually got to the point where he had a 2019 calendar promised as an extra, and he had to change it to, it's going to be a 2020 calendar now. So these are books that when they are released, again, I'll start scouring eBay and seeing if I can get a copy for a reasonable price. Although Nina and Ariel seems a bit more reasonable than some of the others, like say Jawbreakers, another book that cleared $500,000 in funding on Indiegogo. You look on eBay now, that book did come out and people are not letting go of it. Like that book, people put up on eBay for a minimum of $100. It's a steep price, in my opinion. You know, I'll pick it up. If I see one of those under $10, I'd be happy to buy a copy. But $100 is really outside my price range. Other books that I have picked up that were originally funded on Kickstarter, but then I got copies at conventions. Ron Z's Patriotika and Vampire Saviors, Valkyrie Saviors, pardon me. Those have been fun books, but you know, he has a bit of a success, it looks like, putting together successful funding and then getting those books out the door. But I'm happy to pick those up in person when I see them. Maybe that's just my preference. It's definitely my preference. You know, when I have a choice of funding a book that may or may not come out and paying a premium for a book that I know will show up at my door guaranteed in less than a week, you know, I'll always choose the latter. And there's, you know, the most extreme, no pun intended, but the most extreme horror story for this, of course, is Rob Liefeld's Brigade Kickstarter, which he got $35,000 of funding for in 2013, and we haven't seen anything for those books since then. It's been 6 years, but still, if I see that Brigade book and it's under $10, I will almost definitely pick up a copy for it. But will it ever see the light of day? It's hard to say. So, you know, keeping all that in mind, that's really one in the win column for people like Ron Z, who put out Patriotika, and you know, the subject matter again of this video, Ed Bennis putting out Nina and Ariel. I'm a bit of a fan of this book now. If another one comes out, I'll be happy to buy it. So until then, if you like this video, like I always say, be sure to smash that like button. If you're not already subscribed, please do so and tap the bell for additional notifications. Always let you know when I'm going to put up the next video. And if you're an artist yourself, you know, please show me what you got. Share some links in the comments below of your pages and channels. I'd be happy to take a look at it. And if you're an artist, also remember, the only way to get better as an artist is to draw every day. So all the artists out there, until next time, keep drawing.